Every Beatles fan knows the Paul is dead theory, but what if I told you we were looking at the wrong Beatle the whole time? After years of research, I have compiled all the evidence to prove that Ringo is actually the one who died. The Paul is dead theory was a manufactured conspiracy to cover up the real fact that Ringo was going to die shortly. This is because he had underlying health conditions such as appendicitis from when he was just 6 years old, and in 1964 star collapse of tonsillitis. After a regular checkup at the start of 1967, the doctors confirmed that he had less than a year to live. The band then started to worry that Ringo's death could cause mass suicide and depression among fans, so they set out to make a wild theory that Paul was dead, when in fact he very clearly wasn't. Luckily, Paul had gotten into a car crash in 1966, so they used this as a basis to start false rumours of Paul's death, and conspiracy theorists went wild, although they did have to publish some fake news articles to make it feel more real to some fans. With that out of the way, let's start with all the clues we have. 1967, Sgt Peppers. Ringo managed to keep it together for a while, playing on the band's new project, Sgt Peppers. They threw in subtle references to his imminent death, such as the name of the man they found to replace him, Billy Shears, but exactly as planned, the theorists took it as another hint of Paul's death in '66. There are more references including, "Would you stand up and walk out on me?" The joke being, Ringo was actually going to be the one to stand up and walk out. The line, "What do you see when you turn out the lights? I'm not certain but I know it's mine," clearly represents death and how it can come at a flick of a switch. Even on the cover of the album, there are many references, such as Ringo being the only Beatle turned sideways. This represents death in ancient culture. Even the black and white figure behind him, whispering in his ear, is a physical representation of death. If you look at the fake version of the group, on the left-hand side of the cover, Ringo is the only one that's sad, with John putting a hand on his shoulder to comfort him. The bass drum being in the centre of the album cover is a tribute to Ringo and what they thought would be his last album, but that didn't end up being the case. 1967 continued, Magical Mystery Tour. Then, Ringo had a brief recovery and played in good health on All You Need Is Love for the Our World TV show, and during the filming and the recording sessions of Magical Mystery Tour, he was feeling better than ever, until right towards the end of '67, things started to take a turn for the worst, with doctors predicting that he had months of his life left. Luckily, they managed to get filming done and all his parts of the songs were complete. Some references were worked into the songs, such as the lines roll up, that is a play on words for roll over dead, and flying is to signify that Ringo was going to be flying with the angels. It was also around this time that Billy Shears began major surgery in order to look more like Ringo. He was put under an intensive training program on Ringo's drumming techniques and singing techniques, so when he was replaced, no one would be the wiser. 1968, India and the White Album. On the 9th of January, 1968, Ringo was completely hospitalised and couldn't go on the band's planned trip to India. This is when Billy Shears stepped in and went to India instead of Ringo. Lucky for him, he didn't have to play any instruments during this time, so nothing was given away. The time away and the things they practiced help explain why Ringo might have changed a bit. When the band got back from India, they wanted to start work on their new album, The Beatles, or more commonly known as The White Album. But Ringo was still unwell, so couldn't attend. Richard Starkey then passed away on the 22nd of August, 1968. Billy Shears wasn't quite ready to step in as the new Ringo, so the band, upset but eager to record, developed a story of Ringo quitting the band. Here is Billy telling the story in a 2018 interview.
You felt when those three guys were all together, they had bonded somehow.
That was the White Album.
Right. That's where you walked out of the Beatles.
No,
you were like, hey, fuck you guys.
I only went out because I did feel like it was, we'd done Pepper and that was fine. And we were trying to be a band again, which I love.
Right.
And then I'm there in the studio and it's like, I don't feel good. I don't feel part of it. So I go and knock on John's door and I say, hey, I just don't feel right. I don't feel it, I'm part of this. You three seem so close. And he goes, I thought it was you three.
Right.
So I said, okay, I'll go and knock on Paul's door. And I tell him the same thing. I don't feel part of this. I feel you three are so close. And he goes, I thought it was you three.
Right.
So I said, fuck it, I'm off. Then I came back and they were sending faxes to me, come on home.
Right.
And George at the studio full of flowers. That was great. And then we did Blues in a room about 8 foot square. And we were like this rock band again. So we started playing more like a band after the downtime we had on Pepper, putting orchestras on and trumpet players.
The band worked on a couple of songs, with Paul filling in on drums whilst Shears was being prepared. Luckily, it didn't take long and the new Ringo was brought into sessions about halfway through the recording of Dear Prudence, hence why the drumming style goes from Paul's to Ringo's about halfway through the song. The group decided to mostly stay away from references about Ringo's death for the rest of their time as a group. There are few to be considered. 1968 and beyond, final references. After Ringo's death, the replacement Billy Shears started writing songs. This shows a clear change in character, as Ringo wasn't really a songwriter and expressed no desire to do so. The first song Billy wrote was Don't Pass Me By, and with some closer inspection reflects how no one recognises that Billy isn't in fact Ringo, but they are passing him by because they didn't notice it. Octopus's Garden is also uncharacteristic of Ringo, since he couldn't really play any other instruments aside from the drums, yet he can be seen coming up with the chords for the song during the Get Back sessions.
Have you heard the Octopus one? No. You learned A minor, eh? I'd like to be underneath the sea in an octopus's garden in the shade. It would be nice in paradise in an octopus's garden in the shade. That's all I've got.
On the White Album, Paul and John also wrote a send-off song for Ringo called Good Night. I think the meaning behind it is fairly obvious, and it's clearly just the group saying goodnight to Ringo. During the song The End on Abbey Road, Ringo also does a drum solo, which he notoriously hated. This once again shows a change in Ringo's behaviour. The final references I want to point out is the ones on the cover of Abbey Road. Firstly, Ringo is the only one dressed in black, the traditional attire for a funeral. Secondly, the lines in the middle of the road go straight through him, clearly pointing out and representing how he lost his life. Here are some comparison photos of Ringo in 1967/8 before he died, versus how Billy Shears looked as Ringo. Ringo's death is what eventually led to the band splitting in 1970. In the end, the distraction of the Paul is dead theory worked, and kept the fans from the truth. It's only now, through years of research, I've been able to present these findings, and I think we can all agree that this is more plausible than the Paul is dead theory, and should be taken as absolute fact. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to like, and dislike if you didn't. Oh, and make sure to comment down below any more clues and references about Ringo's death that I might have missed. Also, only 5% of you who watch my videos are subscribed, to make sure to do that. Oh, and one last thing. Happy April Fool's Day! If you couldn't tell, this is a complete joke of a video, and not meant to be taken seriously. If you want to watch real videos, be sure to check out this one about Paul's lost bass. Bye, 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 bye.